Hi everyone and welcome to this patch notes rundown video. It's the Halloween patch 9.09, and yeah, we have some quite interesting changes to the lane. We have some new, meta changes, I hope, and overall some nice improvements I want to talk about with you. Let's get started. First of all, I already mentioned it, we have the Halloween patch. This is due to the next Nova Cup that is gonna take part on the weekend of the Halloween event, October 29th and 30th. And we have the next Nova Cup. So make sure to either register your team or yourself, or to just watch it there. On top of this, we will have some nice cosmetics on the lane. As you can see here, we will have some lane changes. We have some pumpkins here, we have some bones on the cave where the waves usually spawn in, and we do have some new skins, which are the witch and the devilfish. We can see them here. They're looking amazing. I really like them. I think those might be two of the best skins that we ever had. Honestly, they're looking amazing. I'm really looking forward to purchase them. So overall, yes. And as we can see, we have the Halloween map declarations that will be live for 1 month. So you can toggle them on in your options, it says. You can toggle them in options, and for 1 month you will be able to have those Halloween cosmetics. Coming next patch, which is likely gonna go live Monday or Wednesday. Next on, finally a bug fix on the queuing system, which is you can queue your workers as well as your mercenaries. And sometimes it happened that even though you had the Mythium to send something, it did queue it, the unit got queued, the unit got sent, but it didn't go out in the wave. Or other things like the Mythium counter was just jumping from like 39 to 40, and it didn't send the 40 creep you marked, but it did send double snake, for example. So there were some hiccups with the queuing system. Those should now be solved, which I'm really happy about, because often you just wanted to make sure, okay, this unit or this mercenary is gonna go out, and sometimes it just didn't, which was always rough. Alright, next on we have the pause button. Amazing thing for all the new players. You're now able to pause games in play versus AI, campaign and custom games, which is amazing. You just have this little button there where you can pause the game. You had the chance to pause it before as well, but I think we had to go to the escape menu therefore, which wasn't that clear for a lot of players apparently. So now we do have another alternative to pause the game, which is amazing. Alright, we have some more improvements. As always, you can read through them, but we will want to point out two things that are actually mattering a lot. First of all, we have the power score. When players save Mythium, the enemy team is now less likely to go on fire. This happened a lot for like longer saves, especially in the early game, due to incoming king of their opponent's team. They are scaling and the power score is getting increased. And even though they got saved on, they might have gone on fire, which is obviously rough since you have to defend yourself, therefore you try to increase your value, but you just go on fire, so you will get a big send, likely leak, and give them shutdown, which is obviously a mechanic you do not intend with power score, so this is hopefully a little bit better. Next on, leaking. Leaking should now be rewarded a bit more. We can see the scaling of gold you get from leaks is wave 1 to 21 was from 25% to 151%. Now we have 25% to 179%. You can already see the base on wave 1 is still the same, which means the later in the game you get those leaks out, the more you will be rewarded with the new system. This is especially good for like mid-game leagues, let's say 12 to 16. Sometimes you just want to send there to undercut, you might not even be able to burst down the opponent's king, but those leagues, those mid-game leagues especially, will now give you a bit more gold, which is obviously pretty good to upgrade your defenses. So I do think that is a good way to give you the chance to still undercut in a way without having to kill your opponent. Really looking forward to see if that actually does an effect in the game. Next on, we're now really facing the direct changes that might have an impact on the meta. I mean, this does have an impact on the meta as well, obviously, but now even more. Giant Slayer now finally getting the revert again, going from 22% to 24%. This is gonna be very good to counter waves 10, 13, 15, 18, a bit more. Obviously, the king now overall is just stronger, but those waves were a real problem against the king. And now they are getting addressed in some way, which I really appreciate, because those waves were just too OP against the king. Next on, we have the cash out. Don't get me wrong, we just discussed this in the stream yesterday. Cash out is one of the two, probably most, or maybe one of the three most played mastermind options in high elo, which is greed. Obviously, you just have the vanilla option. You want to take the basic income, you want to keep it as it is, and decrease the variety as good as possible, as you might have with Chaos or a YOLO, for example. Cash out is pretty much the same, but what you want to do there is to go for more greedy openers. Like really the first, let's say 5 waves, you try to get 1 worker ahead on a normal greed opener. Bone Crusher is a perfect example. The 6 worker Bone Crusher with cash out works perfectly. You do have the option to go a 6 worker Flower. There's just some examples where cash out performs really, really well. Now we have a small decrease in the starting bonus gold. So with cash out you start with 0 income, but you get 23 now, next patch 22 gold. It will not have too much of an effect on the most openers, but still I think that greed or that cash out was in a perfect spot compared to greed at the moment. We compared the numbers yesterday. For very high elos, cash out was actually still worse than greed, but that was obviously games where the average elo was 2.6k. I think that cash out is stronger the lower the elo is, and we actually checked that, and it is as I thought. So let's say a lobby that is average 2.4, 2.2 and 2k, cash out was a lot better compared to lobbies that were 2.6k. I think this is a change towards the medium higher rated players, but the very high elo will not profit from it. I think that was a good choice. I don't know if the 1 gold might change too much. There's still some openers that can be played. Some openers might not be able to be played anymore, especially those that rely on some cheesy tier 1s, like 25 gold tier 1s. Now it might just be a bit too close to get it out for like wave 3. You might miss 2 gold now, which is a shame. Alright. Next one we have Legion spells, Sorcerer getting buffed. Surprise! Sorcerer actually was totally fine. We checked the stats here as well. If you don't know where to check those stats, go to legionlord.com. It's a perfect website. You can go to the statistics, and what we did here, legions, you can check the cash out, for example, legion spells, and then you change the category here towards what elo category you want to look at. We are looking at Grandmaster Plus, which means that the average elo of the total lobby, so the average elo of the 4 players, is 2.6k or more. This is obviously the area I am interested in the most, because this is the very competitive scene, and we can see Sorcerer at the moment has an insane win rate. Those data are a little bit different to the ones Jules uses to make the balance changes. I can't tell you what exactly is different, but Jules mentioned that a couple of times already, that those data are a little bit different, because there's, for example, no pick rate. Like, there is a pick rate, but this pick rate is a little different compared to the pick rate we can see from Jules' data, so there might still be some differences, but it gives a first good impression on how strong a spell performs, and we can see it has a low pick rate, which it also says here, right? Low pick rate, which makes a lot of sense, right? There's only 4 units you should use the Sorcerer on, which is with Trinity Archer, you have Assyria, you have Starcaller, and in some cases Banana Haven. Those are the only units I think are worth putting the Sorcerer on it. So you kind of agree on a low pick rate, which is totally fine. The higher the elo is, the more the people understand that it's only those units you can use it on. But the win rate is actually quite high, so I don't know where the low win rate comes from, which elo range he's looking at, or what exactly happens here. But I think Sorcerer is in the perfect spot, as long as you know what units to use it on. As I mentioned, Asteria, Starcaller, Trinity Archer, and sometimes Haven. Alright, next one we have Sakura getting some buffs. Well, I think the unit is just not really played a lot at the moment because it's very slow, right? You do not want to stay on 2 workers in high elo, especially. I think for lower rated players, let's say everything starting or everything up until 2.2k, I think Sakura might be a really OP unit because just build a little bit more, and then as soon as you're learned what values you need to hold a wave, you can start to getting more aggressive. But overall, it's a unit that rewards you for playing a little bit safer, which is usually a good thing to learn the game, to learn positioning. Alright, talking about a new unit that was pretty OP last patch, the Slime Larva. I think I mentioned it multiple times already in the last Patchnotes rundown and the tier list video. It's a perfect unit for splitting, okay? Since it does have the same ability as the Wanderer, where there is something reviving, and this is perfect for splitting because the units will kill it, move to the main side, and then have to go back again to kill the summon. It was a perfect unit for the split, and it was the perfect unit for countering wave 15 and other ranged waves, because they will always overkill those units. This is getting addressed a bit. I think the unit is still pretty good in a split. You might not want to spam it that much anymore, and especially in the early game you will see some problems here, because obviously 30 HP and 10 on the mini slime, so a total of 40 HP loss might just be a few hits from wave 2, wave 3, wave 4 creep. But overall the unit still has the ability, right, which is the core power of it, why you want to use it in the split or as a spam unit, and it didn't lose that, so pretty good. Next one we have the Slime Siren. In my eyes at the moment pretty useless. Now it's getting some big attack speed buffs and some mana gain on attack speed, so you're a lot more likely to get it full stacked, and as it is full stacked, it's actually a good unit. So the unit on its own isn't good because you most of the times don't get it full stacked, but with those changes I'm pretty sure that in the first, let's say 7, maybe 1 to 9, this unit is very likely to get full stacked, and this makes it a good unit to go for a early game tank and then put some ranged DPS behind it, Disciple, Daphne, Sue, something like this. And you will have a good unit because you will have to kill a Siren, which is hopefully full mana. Then it will summon 3 slimes, and those 3 slimes larvas will summon 3 mini slimes who do have a lot of meat shields, you have a lot of delay. Overall I think this could be a very good early game unit now. Obviously still in the mid game it is very likely to just not ramp up as you want it, but it might be maybe even a viable opener now. I saw some reports in the Discord from somebody who played the PTR server already and said that this unit might be a good opener now. Alright, next one we have the Kingpin. Kingpin just OP at the moment. It does have more HP per gold than a Golem. It does have better DPS per gold than a Golem, and Golem got nerfed multiple times in a row now, so it just makes sense to have Kingpin nerfed. Everything correct about that. Kingpin, one of the best scaling units at the moment, so that's all fine. On top of this, it's a very good unit with a lot of stacks for 10, and 10 being a big threat these days. Sue is getting its attack speed back. It lost last patch, but the synergy with mana effects is decreased by 20%. I think I mentioned it in the tier list video that I think that especially with Starcaller and Magician, Sue is OP at the moment. This is getting reduced a little bit just because 0.7 from mana per second from Starcaller, 0.55 mana per second from Magician, which makes a total of 1.25 mana per second. Is just insane. Every 2 seconds a spell. Just ridiculous how OP this is. Now getting decreased by 20%. I think if you have both Starcaller and Magician, Suse is still a OP combo, but apart from this, I think this makes it a little more viable on its own. Probably still a bit too weak, but this OP combo is getting nerfed, which I think is fine. Still, I think Starcaller and Magician are gonna be amazing on Suse. Next on Harpy and Sky Queen getting more nerfs. I think it is a very, very tiny edge now whether those nerfs are already gonna be too much again, or if they're just fine in order to get Harpy and Sky Queen again out of being played, especially in high elo. I think it's a very thin line just because of the fact that you will always have to commit your build to them, right? It's comparable to boars, it's comparable to a full AoE build. You need a special playstyle to use them, which in most cases is across the lane. If you have steeds, it might be okay to split in some cases. I tried that out myself, and I was actually convinced that if you have steeds, it's fine to split. But if you don't have steeds, you want this extra attack speed by letting them crossing the lane bottom corner to top corner diagonally. And this change is a very thin line towards making it just okay or having it already nerfed too much. I can't say. Honestly, I think we will see how this turns out. One thing, I see two sides, but I heard a lot of people loving this change. I think overall it's a buff as well, is Windhawk getting nerfed a little bit. The attack speed is reduced, so the Windhawk now consistently leaks on wave 1 again. Why is there two sides? Well, first of all, if your Windhawk consistently holds on wave 1, you do have a safe 5-worker opener for 85 gold, which is super cheap. You can add a small amount of gold for it. Let's say cash out, for example, you could have done Windhawk 6-worker into adding an Aqua, and you would have held 1 and 2 if you don't get a cent there. So king up on 1, no cent on 2, would have held with 6-worker, pretty good. Those are options that are promoting the hold on 1. But obviously Fiesta is very popular. You want to maybe not send on 1, then send 40 pre-income on 2 with a Windhawk leaking on 1, same with Consort. So there's the other side that prefers that, and I think overall this is the better argument. Like, more people will like to have the Windhawk League 1 creep on wave 1 for Fiesta, for sending 40 on 2. So overall I think most people will enjoy this. What I really like about this change is that it's not consistent, right? We had the scenario at the moment where it sometimes held, sometimes it didn't, even though it was placed on the same position, which is just trash, right? You want to rely on the unit either full holding or not full holding if there's no send on 1. I think we can agree on that part, and I'm really happy about it now having a consistent league. Alright. Next on, the Violet is getting changed a little bit towards being better with mana regeneration. It is increased, but deals less damage, so you have multiple AoEs it deals now, compared to like sometimes only getting 1 spell out and no other, which is pretty good, especially for the early game, I think, where the Violet is still very beefy. This might be very good. On top of this, we have some more late game scaling with the 0.1% max HP, which is now getting buffed to 0.15%. And we can already see that shifting power from Windhawk to Violet, increasing Violet's late game viability. This is exactly this, right? You get more spells out because of the mana regeneration that has got increased, and we have more damage, especially more max HP damage, which is amazing to see. Next on, Sea Serpent and Deep Coiler. Once again, they're getting buffs. I can't really say if you will now play them. At the moment, they're played rarely, just because there's a lot of builds that do not support it. Sea Serpents and Deep Coiler, they rely on some range split. So you have the coilers placed on your strong side at the very top, and then you have range split just to pull the wave down and away from the Deep Coiler. If you do not have the range split but a melee split, it often just happens that the melee split will die and the Deep Coiler are attacking the wave already, and then those units are the closest opponents, and the wave in the split will just turn around and kill the Deep Coiler, which is often, well, obviously not making them a worth unit to build, and a lot of builds just do not want range split at the moment. We have a lot of disciples that you want to keep alive. You have some builds like gates that you do not want range split. So there's some builds where you just do not want to have a range split, and this makes the Deep Coiler Sea Serpent synergy quite weak at the moment. Maybe it's getting better. I mean, there's quite some nice buffs, especially this one here is pretty strong for the early game. So let's see how this will turn out. Next on, the cannon gets more attack speed. Well, the cannon I don't really like it. I can't comment too much on it, how it's gonna change out, because I'm not a big cannon player. I actually have a very, very bad win rate with it, maybe like 30%. I do not enjoy the unit. I can't handle it correctly, so I can't make a statement about how this turns out. It says it is just a small buff to compensate once the low win rate, and due to some other wave changes that are coming, it's gonna compensate that. I can't comment too much on that. Next one, we have the gates, and we have the small gate. We have health and attack speed decreased by 3% from the summons, which is especially nerfing it on waves like 9, maybe 12. So gate is often a good choice for 9 to defend yourself there, because it is, since 9 is a very slow attacking wave, you often are able to get at least 4 summons out, which makes the gate already worth the value. Well, obviously there it's just overall getting 3% weaker on 12 as well. I don't know how this is gonna turn out. I think it is okay to have that, even though I feel like the small gate is already significantly weaker than the big gate. So I think it could have stayed the same, if you ask me. We have the spawn attack speed decreased by 1%, so we have a 1% nerf on the Hellgate itself, plus the building gets more health. Health here does not matter at all unless some wave creeps are attacking the target. The wave attacking the target usually shouldn't happen anyway, so it doesn't matter too much, since a gate takes 20% damage while summoning a unit, which will not change whether there's 200 more or 200 less HP on it. As I said, only if the wave attacks the unit it matters. And yeah, I do not know if you now are gonna place a gate in a way to like tank one unit. I hardly doubt that, so I think it's just a straight up nerf. I mean, obviously it says here high win rate, high pick rate. Gates are a pretty good unit, right? At the moment you have buffs like Ocean Templar, you have Protector, you do have White Mane, all of them making Gate very, very strong. APS is a good buff for it as well. Sure, right? Gate is a good scaling unit. You want scaling units at the moment. Gate is good on 13. Gate is okay-ish on 15 in some cases, or good on 17 to prevent an undercut. So there's a lot of good use cases for a gate at the moment. This is why it's strong. Holy Avenger getting some nerfs, but the mana synergy is getting increased. Same for the Sovereign, mana synergy getting increased. I don't know about this. Like the Sovereign, 22%, right? It does have a mana pool of 120 if I'm correct, maybe 140. So it will still take a while to get it pumped. But 40% on an Avenger, just add 1 or 2 small steeds in the early game, and it is gonna reach its climax very, very soon, going for the AoE hits, which is super brutal early on. 7, 9 AoE hits are amazing. This damage nerf here though might hit it hard, especially as an opener like Graal into Avenger or Cash Out Avenger might get hit pretty hard with this. But apart from this, the synergy effect here, especially if you have Steed in the early game, might be pretty OP for 7 and 9. But this obviously weakens it on 4, 5, and so on. Everybody. Exactly. Hades mana synergy, I don't know. I mean, Hades has 74 mana, I think. 30% will not change too much, and there's not really a unit I would tell you to like use a synergy, a mana synergy with Hades. Like you probably won't place Pegasus for a Hades. You will not take Magician only for a Hades. You will not place a Starcaller only for Hades. I think overall it's a good change, right? It makes it more valuable to buff Hades with any sort of mana effect, but you will not change any pick now just to have Hades with some mana synergy with it. It's gonna be rewarded a bit more, fine. I absolutely like this, especially since Hades is just a lot weaker than Asteria and Phoenix, which are the OP units at the moment. Talking about magic damage, but overall you will not change any behavior now. Okay, Cannoneer, Drake, both getting some buffs. We have attack speed on the Drake, which is fine, right? Drake is just a little bit underrepresented. You either send other units. If you want magic damage, imps are often the best choice. Drake is basically only sent on like 5, 6, or 9 if you know you might want to weaken your opponent, but you're not quite sure if you can leak him fully, and then you just send a Drake, so you make the Drake at least leak. Same is a Cannoneer you often choose on like 5, for example. You know he might leak, but if he's getting lucky focus, he might hold, so you just add a big ranged DPS unit in order to make him leak, but he will likely only leak the ranged DPS unit, but there is a leak at least. That's often the case why you send Cannoneer or Drake early on. Drake, especially 5, 6, 9, because it will give you additional magic damage, which the wave doesn't have on those. I don't know. I think Drake, fine. Cannoneer though, it feels like Cannoneer is already really OP. I feel like Cannoneer, especially 5, Cannoneer 6, has a lot of impact these days. Cannoneer 11 against Kingpins, which was a very good defense, is pretty strong, even though it's only an income send. So I feel like Cannoneer is already pretty good. It got buffed from 105 damage to 110 damage last patch, now getting another 3 damage. Whew. Really unsure about this one. Like, this is one of the changes I really dislike about this patch, but I think a lot of others are pretty good. So really concerned about this one to get those common Cannoneers now on 5, 6, where you just leak the Cannoneer, but there's a leak, there's a long round, you lose gold, etc. Alright, Centaur getting a nerf, pretty fine, right? Centaur at the moment one of the most used mercenaries, I think, next to Pack Leader Mole and 4-Eye. Centaur just pretty good to blob spam. You have Centaur for any other sort of melee unit spam. It just makes a pretty good figure at the moment. Yeah, overall just very amazing unit these days. Just because of the units you build at the moment, right? You often, for example, gates. Centaur counters the gates pretty good. It's a lot better than a witch to counter gates. So there's a lot of builds you might just want to counter with a Centaur. 16, you get some extra splash with a Centaur. Double Centaur pack is like a very common send on 16 if you have some Mythium. So now just getting nerfed a little bit here. Last but not least, we have some wave changes. And I think those, together with some previous changes, will change the meta a little bit, which I'm really hyped about. First of all, we have some DPS changes on 11, getting nerfed a little bit, but damage getting reduced, attack speed getting doubled. What's going to happen here? What's going to happen here is that the wave won't change too much unless it is now less countered by cheap unit spam. Most of the times you do not cheap unit spam on 11 anyway. The only thing you do is like put a tier 1 at the top to get overkilled, which is now 50% less effective because it's now just going to deal half the HP, which is still going to kill the unit if all fire on it, but it's just going to have the second attack twice as fast. So this is going to get counted, but everything else that happens is that Pack Leader is now a lot more OP on wave 11. I mean, now it does have double the attack speed, so Pack Leader does have double the effect on the wave. That's about it. Still, I think 11 is most of the times not a good choice because 10, we still see no changes to 10. The only indirect change we have to 10 is the Kingslayer change, but 10 in my eyes still pretty OP. But now we will have some more interesting facts. We will have the attack speed getting reduced by the drill golems. We do have drill golems attack speed reduced, nerf. We have the giant slayer buffed, nerf. We have 2 nerfs on 13, which is amazing because 13 is just brutal at the moment. On top of this, we have some health buffs on 14, so we're shifting some power from 13 to 14, which makes it a lot more powerful, especially with the units you were building at the moment. You often had some fatalizers, you had some gates being built, sometimes you had some phoenixes, or like often you had some phoenixes, you had some Aserias. All those units being good on 13, but being kind of weak on 14 is gonna shift the meta quite a bit towards 14, which I really like. I'm really looking forward to see that. We had the 10, 13, 15 or the 10, 13, 16 meta for way too long. I think this is perfectly shifting the power from 13 to 14. Really like this. Next on, we have 15. I can tell you what's going to happen, right, to the wave. As you can read here, we have some DPS changes. We have DPS changes not only on the boss, but also on the small ones. But what's going to happen, it's now going to get the ability dual shot. We know this ability from A19. We somewhat know this ability from 18, which is 2 attacks up to 2 units. So either 2 units are getting attacked, like with a mask, like with the Trinity Archer, but they also can hit the same target, as we know from Trinity Archer. Why is this a change? Well, we will counter small unit spam with this change. You often did either spam tier 1s if you wanted to delay, you were spamming gargoyles, you were spamming slime larvas, you were spamming sometimes cats or peewees. So mostly you can see the pattern. It was small magic, small arcane defensive units in order to delay or full hold due to this overkilling aspect of the wave. Now it is getting countered because it might happen that 2 units are getting attacked at the same time. It is not totally out now because the units are still going to take quite a lot of damage. Let's say, for example, we have the Quadrupus, we have the damage of 80, right? Those are the small ones. We have now 80 damage. Look up a blob here. We have 330. So 80 damage times 4 would be 320, which means we do need at least 5 attacks in order to kill a blob. So 5 units have to attack this blob or this slime larva to kill it, and then the mini slime comes, which is 2 additional hits, maybe even 3 with the reduction. I don't know, I didn't do the maths. So it's still very powerful, right? It's just getting a little bit nerfed, which is overall a good thing to do, because if you had such a units, gargoyle and slime larva, you often just had a chance to put out the miracle hold, even though you basically didn't have units for the wave. Apart from this, I can't really say what is going to change here, okay? What this is going to do is you basically need a good unit for 50 now in order to be good, because you can't have a semi-good unit, let's say Disciples, and then just spam some units I mentioned, and Miracle Hole. That's a lot less likely because it got nerfed. But if you still have a good unit for 15, I think overall this is a nerf to 15, because now let's say you have a few big tanks, a few big meat shields, a Phoenix, a Kingpin, etc. and so on. All of those are going to split tank now due to the multiple attacks, and you're more likely to hold. So I think this is most of the times countering the spam, and it's countering the effect of it holding with semi-good setup. Last but not least, on 15, Phoenix is getting an indirect buff on this, which is not amazing at all, because due to the fact that multiple units can be attacked, the Phoenix is very likely to just get some hits, even though it is not in a tanking position. It's the same for 19, why a Phoenix is pretty OP on 19, because it might just get some second, third hits from the wave, even though it is put in a defense position, and this will increase the attack output of a Phoenix. Next on, we have 18 nerfs. We just get the dot with splash damage, 40 splash damage, not every 3rd attack, but now every 4th attack, which is pretty good. We have a lot of power. On 18 at the moment was just too OP for so many builds. What's gonna change here? We mentioned before, right? A lot of power in 14 now. 18 getting nerfed, so it's very likely to have a lot of like 10 or 11 cents, 14, 17. I think this is quite a common thing. Toykan explained this as well, and said that he thinks this might be a meta shift, and I kind of have to agree, right? Especially the 14 aspect. I think 14 is going to be a very important wave to come in the next patch. We will see that hopefully in the Nova Cup as well, and I think this is going to be a very big turning point, how people are able to defend on 14. And since 14 is getting this massive buff, obviously every unit that is good on 14, like a Doomsday for example, is getting an indirect buff on this patch. Good. And last wave change, we do have some changes on 20, which is doubling the damage, putting the attack speed to a half of it, and now it gains 1, instead of gaining 1 damage per kill, it now gains 1% attack speed per kill. I said it didn't do the math. I do not know who did, but I don't want to make any predictions on this wave. I can't really say how it turns out. It says now less countered by cheap unit spam. I will trust Jules in this, or Lisk, whoever wrote the patch notes. I didn't do the maths myself. I do not really want to make a statement on this yet, but most of the times you did not spam small units on 20 anyway, because you just had this 30 heal Often you wanted to use big units, you wanted to use scaling units, so percentual damage like a Seria, like you have a Fatalizer, you like a Sorcerer, Starcaller, etc. Or just a Starcaller on its own. So small unit spam never was a thing for 20 in most cases, so I think in order to hold it, you didn't want to spam anyway, so that's not going to change at all, but I do not really know what big of an effect this will have on the wave. Obviously, as we can see, Pack Leader now does have less of an effect, but that's about it. I think Shaman as well, right? Because Shaman is giving flat attack damage and buffing attack speed by 50%, so this is also having a nerf on the Shaman there. Nerfs on Pack Leader and Shaman. Alright. And something else coming, we now have some limited edition safety mode plushies. They will come out after a statement on October 28th. 200 of them will be sold, and all of the 200 players that will buy them will be able to have early access to the next chapter of the campaign. So if you want to either have the safety mode plushie or have access to the campaign a little bit more early, go check out the statement on October 28th. That's about it. I think the patch offers a lot of new meta changes, which I'm really hyped about. I think overall the patch is very, very good. I do not know about this change. I can't really comment on the 15 change yet, but I think apart from the Cannoneer, which is a big mistake, and the missing Phoenix and the Seria nerf, this is a pretty good patch overall. I really like that there's some more consistency. I'm pretty happy with the spell. I do not really understand those two. We checked the facts before, right? Cash out just being not as OP in very high elo as it is a bit lower, so depending on who you want to patch, this is fine. And Sorcerer, that makes no sense to me if you know what unit to place it on, but overall a very good patch. I'm really looking forward to see it. I would be interested in your opinion about it, so leave me a comment below. Yeah, have a good one. Bye bye.